But here's the thing. You made a statement about what's crazy. I think what's crazy is when you have the President of the United States acting like Abe Simpson, going and waving his fist at the cloud on social media and putting tariffs on countries like Canada that we have free trade with. Do you support the tariffs on Canada that have raised prices for people?
If we want to talk about his social media presence, it always has been.
Do you support the tariffs?
It's going to be up to voters to decide what they want to do with midterms.
Tariffs on Canada.
Why does it matter what I support?
Why does it matter?
It's up to voters in the midterms. But I'd say with the AI thing, it really triggers a lot of people, which I think, frankly, he likes to see.
You don't want to.
I think you're right. I think people do like to see that engagement. I don't know that some people like to see him tweeting out a bunch of unhinged.
The question is, again, when prices are up, why is it that this president went and engaged in more tariffs on Canada when we already know that it has significant price pressures? Why did he do that, Lydia?
Because it's self-inflicted.
Look, voters are going to have to decide if they think he's doing enough for affordability. I'm not here to answer for
the answer
every single policy that he
that's what's really crazy. The district has been won by a Democrat. That's pretty successful, I would say.
According to the last Reuters poll, Democrats consistently...
I'm not talking about polls, I'm talking about election results.
I'm talking about polls because we're getting closer to the midterms.
We're talking about election results.
We're talking about the generic congressional ballot, as my point was. If the president is so detrimental to everything, I should see the Democrats skyrocketing in all of the polls.
He's losing almost every special election there is.
We talked about this last week, the recent poll.
I think Donald Trump has a serious political problem right now. And it isn't just Democrats criticizing him. It's voters questioning whether his presidency is actually delivering what he promised. A staggering 73% of Americans say Trump hasn't paid enough attention to the country's most important problems, while concerns about the economy, affordability, gas prices, and his priorities continue to grow. And what makes this especially damaging is that even some Republican voters are becoming frustrated. People were promised lower costs and a stronger economy, but now they're looking at their own bank accounts and asking a very simple question. Where are the results? But there's much more behind these numbers than one bad poll. And by the end of this video, I'll explain why Trump's biggest political problem may be the growing gap between his promises and what Americans are actually experiencing. If you believe the path forward is built on progress and inclusion, hit that subscribe button. Let's make this community the strongest voice for democracy online.
Isaiah, the president losing it on social media is not exactly a new thing, but it also, I think, as the challenges that he's facing become more and more serious, it is an issue that the president can't seem to keep his head on straight when we're facing a war, an economy that's unstable, and his party is facing an election in November.
I think ultimately the reason why his numbers are so bad is because he's not focused on anything that anybody cares about. One of the most interesting parts of that poll shows that he's down 8 points specifically with Republican voters when it comes to his handling on the economy. I mean, they look around, they see the promises that he made. He said that we'd have $1 and something gas. That never happened. He said that we would have half off our energy bills within the first year of him being in office. That never happened. All these things that he promised has not happened. And so I think people across the country are looking to say, look, this president is not delivering. He hasn't fulfilled his promises, and they want to see something different. I see that's real.
Yeah, I mean, on Republicans, as you point out, only 34% in this Washington Post poll say that their financial situation is better now compared to January 2025 when Trump took office. 18% say they are not as well off. 48% say that they're about the same. Meanwhile, the president is using social media. I'm not sure if this is like a teenager or like he is an 80-year-old man. So maybe this is what, elderly people are doing on the internet. But it's all these memes of him dealing with the Iran war, guardian of the world, all kinds of things. I mean, Lydia, what is he up? What is he doing?
He is prolific. You can give him that. Look, obviously, it's going to be up to the voters to decide in the midterms. I think that there's things he can point to, Trump accounts, Trump RX, but I think it's going to come down to gas prices as well, which have been coming down, and now we're going up a bit more than I think he would like to see. I think the interesting thing, though, is the incumbent is typically challenged as he heads into the midterms, but in this case, consider the alternative. And the Washington Post has been reporting what Trump voters are feeling, and they feel frustrated. But in the words of one gentleman, he said he's not going to vote for crazy-ass Democrats. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. People may have frustrations that they don't feel as affordability is as much of a focus, and yet consider the alternative. And some of the loudest voices in the Democratic Party now are pushing for the abolition of private
Can I just add to what Lydia? Can I just say something about what Lydia said, though, on the challenges? Because you said that this president is entering this midterm cycle with challenges, but a lot of these challenges are self-inflicted. I think when it comes, like he came in. He can take credit for, I think, bolstering the economy in maybe the first part of his opening year. But you look at inflation today. I mean, he was in Michigan, and before the war in Iran, gas was $2.90, and now today it is $4.22. And that is because of this war of choice. And then so you look at that, you look at the price of groceries, you look at the spread of measles, you look at a diarrhea disease, and all around the country, people are wondering, what is this president actually going to deliver?
I mean, I don't know that he's responsible for cyclist Sarah.
I think that people want a government that works for them. And when you can't trust what's coming from your government, whether it comes from measles or when it comes from not taking shots, you tell me, RFK is doing.
Shots is causing the diarrhea disease?
Well, I think that is happening under President Trump. It's not happening under anyone else.
Well, look, okay, I think that what's obvious.
If you were really worried about disease, I mean, why weren't you worried about millions of people crossing the border who didn't have any?
I mean, it's not happening under Joe Biden.
Go ahead, Isaac.
But here's the thing. You made a statement about what's crazy. I think what's crazy is when you have the President of the United States acting like Abe Simpson, going and waving his fist at the cloud on social media and putting tariffs on countries like Canada that we have free trade with. Do you support the tariffs on Canada?
If we want to talk about his social media presence, it always has been.
Do you support the tariffs?
It's going to be up to voters to decide what they want to do with midterms.
Tariffs on Canada.
Why does it matter what I support?
Why does it matter?
It's up to voters in the midterms. But I'd say with the AI thing, it really triggers a lot of people, which I think, frankly, he likes to see.
You don't want to.
I think you're right. I think people do like to see that engagement. I don't know that it's
some
right.
people like to see him tweeting out a bunch of unhinged AI memes. Is that
likes this?
I think you're right.
But the real question is, again, when prices are up, why is it that this president went and engaged in more tariffs on Canada when we already know that it has significant price pressures? Why did he do that, Lydia?
Because it's self-inflicted.
Look, voters are going to have to decide if they think he's doing enough for affordability. I'm not here to answer for
the answer
every
is
single policy that he
that's
implements.
what's really crazy.
Okay.
I think that's what voters are going to react to.
It is also, I mean, it's a fair point that the reality of Trump's decision making in this moment is the root of the issue. He's lashing out at all sorts of people, reporters, he's tweeting out memes, but he refuses to stop doing the things like tariffs, like getting into a war that he promised Americans he wouldn't get into, that are causing some of the problems that he's dealing with right now.
I think that if the president was having this negative impact across the entire country, then Democrats would be doing a lot better as the opposition party.
We've won pretty much every special election
we're
there
doing
is.
pretty good.
We won
The current
Kentucky,
generic
we won
ballots,
Louisiana, Trump's own state house district has been won by a Democrat. That's pretty successful, I would say.
According to the last Reuters poll, Democrats
I'm not talking about polls, I'm talking about election results.
talking about polls because we're getting closer to the midterms.
We're talking about election results.
We're talking about the
Democrats
generic congressional ballot, as my point was. If the president is so detrimental to everything, I should see the Democrats skyrocketing in all of the polls.
He's losing
and I'm not
almost
seeing
every special election there
we
is.
talked about this last week. The recent poll showed that Democrats have overtaken Republicans in terms of who Americans trust to deal with the economy.
Strangely, the Reuters poll that I've got right here doesn't say that.
Look, not every poll is the same.
Well, then
that's why
my point is, there are some polls showing that Trump is losing ground on key issues, especially on the economy, which is typically something that Republicans do well on. When you look at his approval rating on issues from the economy to Iran to trade to immigration, he's underwater on all of those issues.
So I should expect to see voters trusting Democrats over Republicans, and I'm not seeing that.
You are seeing that. You are seeing that in polls.
Why we won in Georgia, why we won in Texas, why we won in Kentucky, all across this country. Voters are choosing Democratic candidates in special elections. What are you talking about?
The president seems to be extremely fixated on this. I mean, you could argue maybe Democrats aren't paying enough attention. Well, Trump is focused.
Right.
He talks about it virtually every day. He thinks it's the number one issue, curtailing mail-in voting, changing the way states conduct their elections. Why is that the number one issue to him and not actual policy issues that matter to voters, like the economy, like cost of living.
Well, I disagree with the framing of that. I think he is concerned about all of that, but I don't think you have to go back to 2018 or even 2020. I think you have to go back to June with what we saw in the LA mayor's race, where Spencer Pratt was leading, and then weeks after the election.
Oh, here they go again.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, let's see.
hold on a second. Just to be clear, I know there's a lot of polling going on, but that was a multi-way race in which Spencer Pratt was not leading.
Right.
He was actually
he lost.
Hold on.
Absolutely.
No.
He lost.
Let me just disabuse you of this notion.
Yeah.
He was running against two liberals who each had a share of the vote that if you add them together were greater than his share of the vote. That is not leading.
I have a question.
That is not how this works.
How is it possible
Spencer
that
Pratt,
Florida
in that
is
same
able to
in that same state, the Republican who was on the ballot for governor proceeded to the runoff. So again, there is zero evidence.
Interesting how that works.
There is zero evidence that anything went wrong. I can't even believe you would raise this. There's no evidence.
Why won't you bring a case to court then? If you think that something was bad,
you brought it up.
So first of all, I think
you brought it up, so you got to
bring it up. I would bring it up 100
offer
times more.
proof.
Why
These are
has
wild claims.
I just want to say,
not gone to court about this?
Florida is able to count 10 million ballots and get those election results out the same night. Why can't LA and all these other Democrat states do it? There is something shady about it. There are a lot of questions that other people have. I think elections should be so transparent. No one has any questions.
Why did he not go to court?
But
He doesn't
now
want to answer that question. There's a reason for that, though.
I don't know why Spencer Pratt hasn't
because
gone
there
to
was
court
nothing
over it.
shady that was
Because
going
maybe
on.
he
That's why he
doubts the
didn't do
system.
it.
Maybe he thinks the legal system is broken. He won't get a fair trial.
That sounds like cope if you ask me.
All right, go ahead.
Never leave.
I think you're actually illustrating.
I
I think you're illustrating the party's vulnerability here. To the extent you guys are talking about, we have to do something about all these ballots. The way that I would talk about that if I was a national Democratic leader is, why are they afraid of the American people? Why are they afraid of them casting their ballots? That is what ends up happening if Republicans keep talking about people voting in what has become a pretty conventional way as something potentially dangerous.
I think the most important thing happening here is that voters are beginning to judge Trump by something politicians cannot control: their own lived experience. You can dominate social media. You can attack your critics. You can post memes and blame Democrats. But none of that changes what happens when Americans go grocery shopping, fill up their cars, or sit down to pay their bills. And that's why these numbers matter. Trump made affordability a central part of his political message. He promised Americans that life would become more affordable. But when voters don't feel that improvement, they naturally start asking whether those promises were ever realistic in the first place. And I think the economy is particularly dangerous territory for Trump because Republicans have traditionally argued that they are the stronger party on economic issues. If voters begin believing that Democrats are better equipped to handle the economy, that can fundamentally change the political conversation. But there's another issue here that I think deserves even more attention, where politicians choose to spend their political energy. If families are worried about prices, wages, healthcare, housing, and economic security, then I want my government focused relentlessly on those problems. I don't want politicians spending their time convincing Americans that every election is somehow suspicious simply because the results don't go their way. I believe in secure elections. I believe in transparency. And I believe Americans should be able to trust the voting process. But democracy cannot function if politicians constantly undermine confidence in the system without evidence. And ultimately, that brings us back to Trump's polling numbers. This isn't simply about whether you like Donald Trump or dislike Donald Trump. It's about whether people believe their government is actually working for them. Because elections aren't won by memes. They're not won by angry social media posts. They're won when voters look at their lives and decide whether the people in power have actually made things better. And if Americans increasingly believe the answer is no, then the biggest threat to Trump's presidency won't be his critics. It will be the verdict coming directly from the voters themselves. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more political commentary that cuts through the noise and focuses on what actually matters, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me for the next one. Because at the end of the day, democracy belongs to the people, and the people deserve a government that actually listens.